And good evening, and good to be back with you again on Geelong Newsbeat. Have you ever been told to get over something? Occasionally, of course, it's good advice. Maybe often it's good advice in the sense that we can have hurts and things that go wrong for us, and we can drag them on. I know people who've maybe carried wounds for many years which they can't do anything about, and sometimes it can end up destroying them more than that's the greatest harm that happens. It doesn't hurt anybody else, but it really knocks them around. And that phrase, though, to get over it, is it's easier for us to say to someone else than to actually take it on board. The reality is that things can happen to us that can harm us and hurt us very deeply, and unless there's some real area of remorse and making good that comes from the people that maybe have commenced all this and caused all this, well, it's very difficult to in fact get over it. One of the things which I suppose, certainly from the perspective of the Catholic Church, we maybe spend a lot of time looking at things that have been. For example, last week we celebrated the feast of one of the most recent saints of the Church, St. Maximilian Kolbe. His was an extraordinary story. He was a Franciscan priest who was in Auschwitz, the German concentration camp, during 1941, and he actually gave his life for another prisoner that he might be spared from an execution. He was later made a saint of the Church, and the man for whom he gave his life was actually present at that ceremony, which is called the canonization ceremony. And his feast, and his sacrifice is celebrated every year. Those things, it's good to go back and to remember. But in other areas, of course, it can be very difficult for us to not go back. I suppose this week we've celebrated on Monday, if celebrate is the right word, certainly remembered and honoured the memory of those who fought at Long Tan in Vietnam, in the Vietnam War, and the greatest battle in 1967 at Long Tan, and certainly one of those things that we actually 1966. Remember, I've got my dates out. 1966 was the Battle of Long Tan, and one of those things which we really need to take on board as being the wounds of those who have suffered, particularly in that war. The whole question of veterans and their the wounds that they carry is one that I suppose I've spoken of often on this segment and in other situations, because I think it's something which the Australian public, as a rule, thinks it's one of those things which people can get over. And it's not just the Vietnam War, of course. Those who suffered in other wars have also brought back enormous traumas and difficulty, which other people with all the best intentions in the world saying get over it is simply not good enough. This has been accompanied, I suppose, by the fact that for a lot of veterans, the continuous battles that they have for entitlements to be called upon to prove the depths of their suffering and their illnesses and so on, all of this really can add to their suffering and makes it very difficult to get over it. We've seen a lot of debate in the last week or so, I guess, of the situation of the advisor to the state government on veterans issues and commemorating, I think, the Spirit of Anzac competition in schools. A gentleman by the name of Gary Hutchinson, who was a resistor of conscription during the Vietnam War, and a lot of veterans were very upset by the fact that he was being employed by the state government to talk about the Spirit of Anzac. And you can see that in many ways they would have a point, particularly people who've put their lives on the line and had their lives very much damaged through their war experiences. The whole debate has been quite interesting. Some of the editorials and newspapers have been on the side of Mr. Hutchinson, and that's fair enough to have a debate about it. But I think, if anything, it proves the depths of feeling that is carried by many veterans, not in terms of against Gary Hutchinson, but about the fact that their sufferings still remain in large degree unrecognised and unappreciated in terms of just what has happened, particularly when they have gone to war for the sake of their nation. It's one of those things which we need to be very careful when we trot out the phrase, why don't they get over it? A lot easier said than done. And all of us, I suppose, if we think back to some element of our life which has deeply harmed us or deeply hurt us, we find that we still carry those scars. It's no different for those who've fought for our country and still carry those scars to this very day. We need to be more and more appreciative of them, more and more understanding of them, and to say to them, get over it, is usually just not good enough. Good to be with you on Geelong.